Every Formula One driver knows one rule above everything else. When race control speaks, you trust it instantly. No hesitation. No debate. No second guessing at racing speed. But at Silverstone, the message that should have been the clearest instruction in the race became the moment that confused the entire world. Max Verstappen spun out of third place at Stowe on lap 48. The safety car came out. Charles Leclerc was leading. George Russell was second. Lewis Hamilton was third. The British Grand Prix was heading toward a dramatic finish. Then, on the penultimate lap, the message appeared. Safety car in this lap. That meant one thing. One final restart. One last lap. Ferrari defending. Mercedes attacking. Silverstone ready to explode. Then the message was cancelled. No restart. No final fight. The race ended behind the safety car for the first time since the 2022 Italian Grand Prix, and the FIA later blamed the confusion on a software error. That is why drivers are demanding answers. Because this was not just a disappointing finish. It was a trust failure. And in Formula One, when the safety car message becomes unclear, the question is no longer who won the race. The question is whether the fastest drivers on Earth can still trust the system that tells them when to slow down, when to prepare, and when to race. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why the drivers want answers, you have to understand what that message really means inside the cockpit. Safety car in this lap is not just a line of text. It is the switch between controlled danger and full racing. Before that message, the driver is managing a neutralized race. He is keeping heat in the tires, keeping the brakes alive, watching the gap, listening to the engineer, and staying ready without attacking. After that message, everything changes. Now the driver prepares for a restart. The leader starts thinking about when to launch. The cars behind start thinking about slipstream, battery, tire temperature, and the first braking zone. Every driver becomes alert because the race is about to go from slow control to violent acceleration. That is why the Silverstone message mattered so much. It told the field that the race was about to restart. Then it told them, indirectly, that it was not. That kind of confusion is exactly what a safety car procedure is supposed to prevent. Because during a safety car, Formula One is not asking drivers to be creative. It is asking them to obey. Do the procedure. Follow the pace. Stay in order. Prepare only when instructed. Trust the system. And trust is the key word. A Formula One driver cannot treat race control like a suggestion box. He cannot see a message and wonder whether it might be wrong. He cannot wait for 3 confirmations while the field is bunching up and the tires are cooling. He has to react instantly. That is why a wrong safety car message is not a small mistake. It changes behavior. It changes expectation. It changes preparation. And at the end of a race, those details are massive. At Silverstone, the field was not cruising through an ordinary middle phase. The race was nearly over. Charles Leclerc was leading. George Russell was second. Lewis Hamilton was third. The crowd was ready for the kind of final lap that can turn a Grand Prix into a memory people talk about for years. Then the restart signal appeared. For the fans, it created hope. For the drivers, it created action. That difference matters. Fans thought, we might get one last fight. Drivers thought, prepare now. Tires, brakes, energy, gaps, positioning, restart timing, defensive lines, attack zones. All of it starts moving in the driver's mind the second that message appears. Then the restart disappeared. And suddenly, the whole ending felt wrong. Not necessarily illegal. Not necessarily unfair to one specific driver in a simple way. Wrong because the race's emotional and operational direction changed twice in a matter of moments. That is what drivers are reacting to. They are not only saying, we wanted a better show. They are saying, we need the instructions to be stable. That is a very different demand. Because a disappointing safety car finish is part of racing. Sometimes the crash happens too late. Sometimes there is not enough time to clear the track. Sometimes the safest answer is to finish neutralized. Fans may hate it, drivers may hate it, but everyone can accept it if the procedure is clean. Silverstone was different because the procedure became confusing to the outside world at the exact moment clarity mattered most. The FIA said the safety car process was technically followed, but the message appeared by mistake because of a software error. That explanation creates a problem. Because it separates the rulebook from the experience. The rulebook may say race operations followed the process. But the people watching did not experience a clean process. The drivers did not experience a simple, obvious final phase. The teams did not get a race ending that felt emotionally clear. They got a wrong message. Then a cancellation. Then a safety car finish. Then an explanation. And that sequence is exactly why the demand for answers is so strong. Because drivers do not want to wait until after the checkered flag to understand what race control meant. They need to understand while the cars are moving. Immediately. Without doubt. Without needing to decode a software failure later. That is the basic standard. And Silverstone challenged it. This is why the issue is about more than entertainment. A restart is not just exciting. It can also be dangerous if drivers are not all operating with the same expectation. One driver may think racing is about to resume. Another may be less prepared. One team may tell its driver to warm tires aggressively. Another may be trying to understand whether the message still applies. The leader may be thinking about restart timing. The cars behind may be preparing to attack. Even if nothing goes wrong, the possibility of different expectations is enough to worry drivers. Because Formula One safety depends on shared understanding. Everyone has to know the state of the race. Green, yellow, virtual safety car, restart, finish. These words have to be exact. There is no room for maybe. And at Silverstone, the message created a maybe. That is why every driver has a reason to care, even the ones who were nowhere near the podium. Because the safety car procedure does not belong only to the top three. It controls the whole field. The driver in 10th has to know if he is defending points. The driver in 15th has to know if he is preparing for a restart. The driver at the back has to know how the pack will behave ahead. A false restart message affects the entire race environment. That is why the FIA cannot treat this like a broadcast issue. It was not just about what viewers saw on screen. It was about what the race was communicating. And if the wrong message reached the live race environment, then the drivers have every right to ask how. How did the software error happen? How did the message appear? Who saw it? How was it cancelled? Were all teams informed clearly? Could a similar error appear during a more dangerous moment? What backup system exists if the main software produces a wrong instruction? Those are not dramatic questions. They are necessary questions. Because Formula One drivers are being asked to trust systems they do not control, while driving cars that leave almost no margin for confusion. That is why the word software made the controversy worse. If the explanation had been a simple judgment call, the paddock could argue about the judgment. Maybe race control should have restarted. Maybe there was not enough time. Maybe the track was not clear. Those debates are normal. But software error points to something deeper. It suggests that the machinery of race control, the digital layer that should support clarity, became part of the confusion. And in modern Formula One, that is alarming. This sport is built around precision. Timing gaps are measured to thousandths. Pittsburgh lane speeds are policed with extreme detail. Track limits can be decided by tiny margins. Teams spend fortunes chasing fractions of a second. So when a safety car message is wrong at the end of the British Grand Prix, the contradiction is impossible to ignore. Formula One can measure everything, but could not keep the most important late race message clean. That is why the reaction is so emotional. Because fans and drivers both feel the same thing from different sides. Fans feel robbed of clarity. Drivers feel exposed to uncertainty. And both are asking for the same answer. How does this not happen again? That is the core of Block 1. The demand is not just, explain Silverstone. The demand is, prove the next message will be correct. Because a cause is not a fix. Saying software error tells people what went wrong. It does not prove the system is now safe from repeating it. It does not explain whether there was a backup. It does not show whether human oversight caught the problem fast enough. It does not restore instant trust by itself. Trust needs proof. And Silverstone damaged trust at exactly the wrong level. Not trust in a driver. Not trust in a team. Trust in race control communication. That is one of the foundations of the sport. Drivers can fight each other because they believe the shared rules and signals are stable. They can attack at full speed because they know when racing is live and when it is neutralized. They can slow for danger because they trust that everyone else has received the same command. If that shared belief weakens, even slightly, the entire system becomes more fragile. That is why the FIA is under pressure now. They do not just need to say the rules were followed. They need to make the drivers believe the next safety car instruction will be clear, correct, and impossible to misunderstand. Because at Silverstone, the race did not end with a pure racing question. It ended with a control question. Was the safety car coming in, or not? The answer should have been simple. For a few seconds, it was not. And in Formula One, a few seconds of uncertainty are enough to turn a controversial finish into a full paddock demand for answers. But the Silverstone message was only the visible mistake. The deeper problem is what it revealed about the FIA's control systems in a season where trust was already under pressure. Because if this had been one isolated confusion in an otherwise calm year, maybe the anger would have faded quickly. Fans would complain. Drivers would ask questions. The FIA would explain the software error, and the paddock would eventually move on. But 2026 has not felt calm. It has felt like one official controversy after another, and that is why Silverstone landed so heavily. By the time the safety car message appeared and then disappeared, Formula One had already been living through arguments about penalties, timing systems, measurement accuracy, reviews, appeals, and whether results were becoming too dependent on processes outside the racing itself. That context changes everything. A mistake in isolation feels like a mistake. A mistake inside a pattern feels like proof. And for many fans and drivers, Silverstone felt like proof that Formula One's official systems were becoming too fragile for the pressure of the sport. That is why the demand for FIA answers became bigger than one wrong message. Because the question was no longer only, why did the safety car in this lap message appear by mistake? The question became, why does this keep happening in different forms? Monaco had already opened that door. Pierre Gasly finished third on track, then lost the podium because of 2 5-second penalties for pit lane speeding. The margins were tiny. One was only 0.1 km/h over the limit. The other was 0.4 km/h over the limit. In Formula One, tiny margins matter. Nobody disputes that. But then Alpine challenged the result, and the controversy became much bigger. Gasly was later reinstated to third after Alpine proved Formula One's pit lane distance measurement was inaccurate. The measurement error was roughly 77 centimeters. 77 centimeters changed a Monaco podium. That is the kind of detail that damages confidence. Because suddenly, the argument was not just about whether Gasly drove too fast in the pit lane. It was about whether the official system measuring the offense was accurate enough to punish him in the first place. And once that question enters the paddock, it does not disappear.